guys, and welcome to another video. Welcome to another reading vlog. I thought for this reading vlog we could just spend a week together and see how much I actually realistically read every single day of the week. So I thought I'd just do daily little updates, update you on the book that I'm reading, how many pages I've read the day before, and just have a little chit chat about the books that I'm reading this week. So this is day one. We're starting off with The XX by Erin Sterling. I've actually nearly finished this book. This is the last one of sort of my spooky Halloween season vibe books that I really wanted to read this year, and I've nearly finished it. I've only got about 60 or so pages left of this, and I'm really hoping to finish this one today and maybe move on to my next book. I don't actually know what my next book is going to be, but it's definitely going to be something on my November TBR, because there's some books on there this month that I really want to get to before December starts, because December's going to be filled with so much Christmas holiday content and books, and the Christmas books that I own are kind of separate to my everyday kind of TBR. So this is my last chance for this year to kind of get through some of the books on my TBR that have been on there all year round and that I've really been looking forward to getting to. Obviously after December we can go straight back to the TBR and the books are still going to be there, but some of them I really do want to tick off my list before the end of the year, and a lot of them are actually on my November TBR, which is really exciting. So it'll definitely be something from my November TBR, but I don't know what yet. I'm going to see what I'm in the mood for when I finished reading The XX. Good morning, welcome to day 2 of this reading vlog. I feel like I didn't really do any updates yesterday, but because I read quite late into the night, I always feel like I should just do my updates the next morning and calculate how many pages we actually read yesterday. So that's what we're gonna do. As you saw, I finished The XX by Erin Sterling. This was really cute. It was such a cute read. It's just absolutely perfect for Halloween time. I just love the vibes of this book. It kind of reminds me very loosely of Practical Magic. If anybody's seen that film, I absolutely love that film. It's my favourite film to watch around Halloween, and this had some similarities, but just the whole vibe of it with the witchy family and the little shop down the road that they own, and not everybody knowing that they're witches. I love it. I love it. I also really liked the whole concept of this. I liked that it was like a jokey curse gone wrong. I liked that the ex-boyfriend was kind of brought back to the small town, and then they had to work together to break the curse in order to protect the town. I liked that it also had Halloween in the book, which just made it the perfect time to read it. And I just feel like this is going to be a book that I recommend every October because I just loved it. It was just such a fun vibe. I loved the kind of witchiness of it. And it was a really easy read as well. It is third person, which I've said this before, but I feel like some third person you really notice that it's third person and you feel kind of distant from it. But this one was one of those where it didn't really have that much of an effect when you were reading it. Like, it still felt very much like you were in the story and it was very immediate. And I also like these two characters, Vivian and Reese, and I like their chemistry. I like their banter together. It was just really cute. It was really cute. And I think for rating, I'm gonna rate it, I think it's somewhere between a 3 and a 4 star, so I think I'm gonna settle on like a 3.5 star. That feels right to me. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, it's literally the perfect book to read during Halloween. So I'm so glad that I got round to reading that because I didn't know whether I was going to be able to fit that one in, but I'm really glad that I did. Moving on to my next read. Now we're into my November TBR. Like I said yesterday, I'm really excited to get through some of my monthly TBR. And as you would have seen last night, I ended up picking up Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. This is one of those that I was so intimidated to go into just because I heard so much about Olivia Blake's writing. Her writing style is something that I've heard really specific things about, and I wasn't 100% sure if it was something that I would click with or not. And I just feel like Olivia Blake's books in general are just kind of intimidating. I don't really know why. This is one that I've not actually heard that much about. I've heard so much about her Atlas 6 series. I feel like that's the one that everybody raves about and everyone kind of associates with her. I have also recently heard things about like One for My Enemy, I think it's called, and Masters of Death, those two as well, I see a lot on TikTok. But the Atlas 6 is like the main one that I see. I don't really see that many people talking about this one. I did see, however, Lauren Roberts, who wrote Powerless, which we know I love that book. She did a video on TikTok a while ago and I saw it the other day, and it was her recommending books that she just recommends to everybody, and this was actually in there. So that's part of the reason why I picked it up when I did. I was so intrigued to see that she'd included it in her video. Last night I actually only got to about 20 pages or something. I will calculate that in a second, but I only got to about the 20-page mark. I will say that this has so many good kind of concepts and ideas and really kind of gets you thinking, but the way it's written is so wordy. I'm finding at the minute it's just so wordy, and it's almost like she kind of reiterates the same point over and over again, which I don't mind, but sometimes I kind of lose my way and I have to go back and like read it a few times. Like just from the prologue itself, I really like the concepts that they're talking about, and I am really intrigued to see what the rest of the book is like and what it's actually about. But it's talking about kind of meeting somebody for the first time, and that moment that you meet somebody for the first time, and it kind of reminds me of like the butterfly effect, and also the idea of fate and whether tiny changes along the way change the outcome, or whether the outcome is going to be the outcome no matter what, and it's just the way that you get there is slightly different. So there are quite a few things that I talked about, like the butterfly effect, like fate, that I'm really interested in, and I really like it when it's spoken about in books. But just sometimes the way that it's worded, I'm like, I can't follow this sentence. An example of that, when she's talking about meeting him for the first time, it says, did it matter where it started and would it matter where it would end? Either yes, it mattered very much because everything was a consequence of something, and therefore what became of them was somehow predetermined, or no, it did not matter at all because beginnings and endings were not as important as the moments that could have happened or the outcomes that might have been. Either it was everything to know the whole story, to look back and see the shape of it while standing along its periphery, or it was nothing because things in their entirety were less fragile and therefore less beautiful than the pieces within the frame. That is a really nice sentiment, and it's beautifully written, but it is very wordy in the fact that I have to like go back and I kind of lose what she's saying, and then I have to go back and like reread it. And I don't know whether it's something that I just need to get used to the way that this is written, because like I said, I am only 20 or so pages in. What's also really interesting is that it's kind of like a script or like a movie scene where it has like normal writing and then it has scene and it like sets a scene and then it has action and it does what he's doing. I thought that was so interesting, and I've never seen that in a book before. And at first it kind of confused me because I was like, I don't know where we are. Like, are we the audience? Are we watching? Are we with them? Are we actually in like some sort of play or something? I didn't know. But I think it's just designed to be set up like a movie type thing. But when I flicked through, it doesn't look like that continues all the way through, so that's also interesting. We'll see what it's like. They're sort of my thoughts so far. I think I just need to kind of get used to this writing style and get used to the way that she's telling this story, because it does feel different to anything that I've read before. As for how many pages I read yesterday, let's just calculate. So for the XX, I ended up reading 64 pages of the XX, and then I read up to page 23 in Alone with You in the Ether. So that's 87 pages in total yesterday. Today I'm just gonna try and sit down and really get into this book, because I feel like whenever I start a new book, I just really need to sit down and fully get into it and fully get into the story before I'm really hooked. So I feel like that's what I need to do today, and that's my plan. Some of her choices I feel like are so questionable and I don't know whether I like her yet as a character, and I don't know whether we're meant to like her. Just some of the things that she's kind of thinking and the choices that she's thinking she could make, I'm a bit like, questionable. It's definitely interesting and definitely different to anything that I've read so far, I think. Kind of gives me similar vibes to like Normal People, or what I imagine One Day would be like. I've only seen the show of One Day, I've not read the book, but what I imagine that to be kind of written like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's very much focusing on two separate people and why they are the way they are and what makes them them. I'm guessing it's gonna then bring them together and see how they're kind of working each other out type thing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. They're both already from the get-go very kind of like, I get the impression that they don't feel like they fit into societal norms and they feel very kind of like an outcast. And I think that kind of is what the title is about as well, like Alone with You in the Ether. It's kind of like a metaphor because they're kind of like the outcast, so they're kind of alone in that, but together. So that'll be really interesting to see how they kind of work together and if they have like the chemistry together. There's a lot about time, which is so interesting to read about, but there's a lot about time and that kind of comes into fate, which is what I was talking about before. And Aldo is fascinated by time travel and he's like trying to prove that it's possible. And him talking about that is really interesting to learn. But I just don't know right now what the kind of plot is of the book. I kind of feel like this is going to be a book with no plot and just kind of the vibes of the people, and it's quite literally about the individual people, but then how they're also being brought together. That's the impression that I'm getting. I can't imagine right now there being like a plot. It's just vibes, which some of my absolute favourite books are no plot, just vibes, so I'm here for that. But I feel like I'm not far enough to decide what I think about it yet. I don't know. I'm puzzled. It's definitely a really interesting read and like I said, different, and it feels like it's pushing me kind of outside my comfort zone with books, which I feel like sometimes is a good thing to kind of push yourself. So we'll see. We'll see. Hello, it is day 3 of reading with me for a week, and yesterday I actually didn't read as much as I was hoping to. I find this book a lot to digest just with the writing style and the amount of sort of ideas and concepts that there are in this, which is great, and I really do enjoy reading about them. But I think the way it's written feels like a lot to take in, so I feel like I can't binge read it, and we know I love to binge read a book. I just love a bingeable book. And I feel like I get more invested and like more involved with the characters if it is a book that I can binge read. Yesterday I ended up reading in total 74 pages, so I'm nearly at the 100 page mark. I'm at page 97. This is like a 300 and something page book altogether, so I'm about a third of the way through. I feel like I'm getting more of them and like their dynamic. It's basically set into 6 different parts and I'm in the middle of part 2. This is one where they basically agree to have 6 conversations in total with each other, and that's the good amount to basically learn about each other, and from then on they'll kind of go their separate ways. That's the initial kind of deal that they have. I get the sense that they are very compatible in terms of they both feel like outcasts and they both feel misunderstood, and I can see very much how they are come together and they can understand each other really well, and I do really like that aspect of it. I'm not finding the chemistry is massively there, but I don't know whether that's just because of the type of people that they are and how they've come together and like how their relationship is at the minute. And it's also a weird one because she actually has a boyfriend, and I think that her relationship with her boyfriend is unusual, and I feel like the way that this is written, like I'm understanding them as people and how they work as humans, but I feel like it's taking a lot of work to try and understand them. I don't feel like it's given to us easily, if that makes sense. I feel like yesterday I didn't really explain what the book was actually about, and to be honest I don't even know if I could. It's really hard one to explain. We're basically following 2 people. We're following Regan, and she works in an art museum basically as like a guide that does all the tours around the museum, and she's also bipolar, so she's going through psychotherapy, and she's also a counterfeit artist, and she has this crime sort of background that hasn't really been massively revealed yet. And then we have Aldo, and he's a professor at the university, and he very much likes in a certain way. He likes his routines and he's very science orientated and science led. So we have Aldo, who is very like rules, routines, and then we have Regan, who is very chaotic, doesn't like to be predictable, she likes to shock people. So they're very much kind of opposites, but they're outcasts in their own way. And then we have these 2 people coming together, meeting and getting to know each other and to understand each other. I feel like that's the best way I can explain it. Like I said yesterday, it is very much no plot, just vibes. It feels a bit like a character study. in the way that we're also learning about these characters as well as them two learning about each other. I still don't really know how I feel about it in general. There are some lines that I really like and are ones that I literally just want to get my highlighter out and highlight because they're so beautifully written, and I really like the concept and the ideas that are in here. But I feel like not very much is happening even between them two. I do like them, and I like the way that they kind of understand each other, and I like seeing that play out and how that evolves. But right now I just don't feel like I have that many thoughts on it. Like, I just can't work out how I feel about it. So I'm hoping to read some more tonight at some point and get a bit further in, see what's going on. And I'm hoping the sort of romance aspect will pick up a bit because it does say a love story on here. But right now it does feel very much like a character study of two people. Hello guys, it's day 4 of this vlog and it's time for a little update from yesterday. So on day 3 I ended up getting to page 153 of Alone with You Neither, and I ended up reading, let me double check, 56 pages altogether. I feel like I'm getting through this quite slowly, and I think I mentioned this before, but it is just a lot to take in at the minute, and I think I'm only just starting to get used to the way that this is written. Part of me kind of feels like it's changing up its writing style a lot. I don't know if that's just me or whether the writing style is kind of sporadic like that. I'm not reading as much as I usually read each day, but I think that's purely based on the fact that this has just really got me thinking on a deeper level. There is a lot of like more complex concepts and ideas that I really want to take in properly, but I feel like that's fine. I don't know whether to start another book alongside this as well, so that like later on at night, I find this with classics as well, later on at night I feel like I need something else to read because I'm just more tired, and like I feel like I can't read for as long as I would like to because what I'm reading is getting my brain going, if that makes sense. So I don't know whether to start something maybe like Powerless by Elsie Silver like alongside it. I don't know if that's a really bad idea because they're two romances. I don't know whether they're gonna kind of like merge in my head. But I imagine that Powerless would be really different to this. So I'm definitely considering starting something like Powerless at the same time, something just very easygoing and not kind of complex for me to understand. I feel like we're only just getting them two together. We've kind of been following them separately, but only just getting them sort of coming together, and with that we're seeing more of their connection. I feel like we're not seeing their connection right from the get-go, but we're kind of seeing it more evolve, which is quite nice because I really get the impression that these are two strangers learning about each other, but they're also understanding each other on a different sort of level than anyone else in their life is. And I really like the sort of bond that they have and that is growing between them, and I really want to see more of that. I think that's what will make me really invested in their story. She does currently still have a boyfriend. So I would like that to not be a thing. I'm about, I'd probably say, just under halfway through. So I'm going to read some more today and I will update you with my thoughts throughout. So interesting. I really like the way some of this is written and the way it feels very much like a stream of consciousness, and we're very much in the main character's head. So an example of this is that Regan, whose first name is Charlotte, she gets into an argument with her mum, and we don't actually see that argument happen, but we see after the argument and she's like replaying in her head, and we're very much in her head with her. And it's really interesting because we only get her mum's side and like her mum's voice in her head. So there's no speech marks, nothing. There's no Charlotte's side of the conversation. It's literally just like, you're an adult, Charlotte, act like one. Is it for attention? Haven't we given you enough of that by now? Look at your sister, Charlotte. Look at Madeline. She has a life, a family, a good job. You can't be irresponsible like this forever. What are you trying to prove? This man, whoever he is, did you bring him here to upset me, to upset us? Is that it? He's rude, he's here in our home and hardly giving us the time of day. And then a bit further on, it's like, I know you're not stupid. That's the worst part, Charlotte. I know how smart you are. I know what you could be, but you waste it, don't you? You waste your potential with tantrums like this, rebelling for no reason. And it's like you can see this conversation happening, but you don't get any dialogue. You don't get Charlotte's side. You just get the mum, and it's the mum's voice in her head. And then a bit later on, it really cleverly changes to Charlotte's voice, and she points out little details about Aldo that only she would know. So you know that it's like slightly changing to her own thoughts, and she's kind of coming back to being less invaded with her mum's voice and her mum's thoughts and ideas. And I just thought that was a really interesting way to write it, and really gives you a vibe of what she's like and what she's going through and how her brain works. I just thought it was really interesting and I just wanted to share. There's a real thing about multiverses and what are they doing in each different universe, and I think the concept of that is so interesting, and it kind of plays on the idea of like fate and is it predetermined or not, and I really like the way that that is a common theme in this book, and how it also gives us a bit about how the characters' brains work as well, because we have Aldo basically replaying a scene that happened between them, and he's replaying all the ways that it could have gone, and it's written out how it would have happened, and I just love that whole concept, and I love seeing what he is thinking would happen in each one of those multiverses. I just think that's fascinating, and I really like that they've included it in here, and I'm a real sucker for anything to do with like soulmates or anything to do with destined to be together, they're fated to be together, and this is starting to have that kind of feel to it. Where's my book? Let me get my book. Okay, it's day 5 of this reading vlog, which means we only have 2 days left, which is crazy to me. But update time. Yesterday I got up to page 238, which is also the start of part 5 as well, so I only have 2 parts left to go. I think I have like 70, 80 pages left, so I'm really hoping to finish this one today. I didn't actually end up starting another book as well. I think I said yesterday or the day before, maybe? I think it was yesterday, that I was thinking of starting Powerless at the same time. I didn't actually end up doing that because I got quite far into this, and I think that the second half of this book is so much better than the first half. I'm not gonna lie, I was literally considering DNFing this book at the start, and I'm actually really glad that I carried on because it is different to any other romance that I've read, and the writing style is so unique, and I feel like she's really kind of nailed it in the second half, in my opinion. I just really get on with the way that she's written the second half. I don't know what it is about the way that this is written. Some of it just feels like completely different writing styles, but the second half is a bit more consistent in the writing style, and I'm really getting on with how the story's told and how it's written. As for amount of pages that I read yesterday, I ended up reading 85 pages, but I feel like I got quite the way through, and I feel like the story's definitely shifted. It's definitely moved on, and we get much more of their connection together, and we really get to see them on a romance kind of level, and it's that type of romance where they just truly know and see and understand each other, and that's the way that it is romantic, is that they only truly see each other unlike anybody else in their life, and there's a real feeling of like they're outcasts in this society and nobody really understands them, but then they have each other and they understand and love each other. And I just think there is something so romantic about that, even though it's not the standard sort of romance that is in a lot of romance books. There is something so deep and almost like they're finding a comfort within each other, but they're also just so understanding of each other. I don't know how else to put it. It's just very romantic in a different way than I'm used to reading about, and I'm really enjoying that part of it. I'm actually hoping to finish this today, so I'll have some full updates and everything tomorrow when I finished it. Yeah, it's definitely kind of turned a corner for me. I think I'm enjoying it a lot more now than I was doing to begin with, so that's fun. Just found out why it's called Alone with You in the Ether, and I'm not going to share it because I don't want to ruin anything, and I personally really love finding out why books are titled the way that they are, but it's really cute. Good morning, it's day 6 of this vlog, and it's time for a little rundown of yesterday. Yesterday on day 5 I ended up finishing Alone with You in the Ether, which we'll talk about in a second, but that means in total I read 79 pages yesterday. I do feel like I have talked a lot about this book in this vlog, but I ended up really liking this. As I said before, I wasn't sure whether I was actually going to carry on with this book, and I nearly DNF'd it. I will say that the first half was kind of slow, and I felt like it took half the book to actually properly get get into it and get used to the writing and get used to these characters, and I'm actually really glad that I carried on. It was like a 3-star book to start with and it ended up being a 4-star read for me, and I do think it is one that I will think about. I've literally thought about it since I put it down. I know that was literally only yesterday, but these characters have very much been on my mind and I am feeling kind of sad that I've left them. And it's one that I really wish that I'd annotated because there were so many good quotes in here and just so many romantic quotes that I just wish I could go back to and read them out to you because they were just so lovely. This isn't that kind of giddy, excited sort of romance. This is a very different type of romance and it's unlike any that I've read so far. It's the kind of romance where they are two outcasts, they don't feel like they fit in anywhere, they don't feel like they can fully be themselves, but then they find each other and they properly, truly understand each other in a way that no one else does, and that is the romance, that is the romantic part of it, and the way that they so deeply feel for each other in almost a borderline toxic kind of way, but not toxic like they're bad for each other, but just in a kind of where is the line between want and need, and to them it almost feels like they need each other. And it also looks at how they each affect each other and how they're never truly going to be the same. Whether they end their relationship or not, they've still been affected by them and that's affected them forever in some way. They're different to how they would have been if they hadn't met each other. It's like a type of love where they're so obsessed with each other and so like deep rooted together that they can't imagine a world without each other, and it's almost like they've become one, even though they're still two separate beings. It's almost like they have become one and they're not fully whole without each other, which is what I mean by it's slightly toxic. Maybe toxic isn't the right word, but it's like almost like an unhealthy attachment to each other, and they talk about how they feel like they are unhealthy for each other and whether it's something that's really kind of detrimental to them or actually in a weird way kind of healthy for each other, because they can be completely themselves, and it's really hard to explain. And the whole thing with multiverses, I think I spoke about this a couple of days ago. I'm obsessed with it. I absolutely love it. I love the whole, were they always going to find each other and it would just happen slightly differently in every universe, or is it kind of luck that they've crossed paths at this moment? And that kind of comes into their fascination with time as well, and time as a concept, and how time can feel slightly different with somebody else, and how their connection changes more than they kind of think it does. Like it changes the feeling of time. It just feels very much like a true unconditional love connection with two flawed characters, but these flawed characters have just fallen so in love with each other because of their flaws and because they understand each other like no one else does, and it just feels like they really truly see each other, and I just think that is so romantic in a lot of ways. And I'm really glad that I actually continued reading it and that I ended up finishing it, and it has a really nice kind of satisfying way that it all wraps up. I don't know, they're my thoughts. I hope I haven't rambled too much about it, but I just feel like there's just so much to unpack about this book and there's so much that I want to go into, so I hope you don't mind me rambling. As for my next read, I actually have no idea what I'm going to start next. I have a few options. We have Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is a YA romantasy. We have Wuthering Heights, which I don't know whether to kind of put this one off because this one did take a lot of brain energy, I feel like, and maybe I need something a bit easier because I feel like this one as well, because it's a classic, is going to take more brain power. We do have Powerless by Elsie Silver, which has very much been on my mind, and I promised you guys that I would read it this month, and that is going to happen. But whether it's next, I don't know, but we do have this one. Or we have Every Move You Make by C.L. Taylor, which is like a stalker thriller kind of vibe. These are the 4 that are on my radar at the minute. I basically brought my entire November TBR. But these are the ones that I was actually looking at last night after I finished Alone With You in the Ether, but I didn't end up starting anything because I literally couldn't decide which one I was in the mood for. I'm going to choose one of these, but I'm probably going to choose it later on because I have some work that I need to do first, and then I'll sit down to read and we'll start it together. Good morning guys, welcome to day 7 of this vlog, the last and final day. Well, technically it's not the last day because I'm going to do an update tomorrow on how many pages I read today in total, and also just have a look at how much we read this week altogether. But I didn't actually get to update you last night. I did start on my next book, but I didn't get very far into it because it was really late when I went to bed last night. But let me tell you, I'm obsessed already. I think this is going to be a quick read for me, I really do. I'm reading Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the next book that I decided to pick up. I was thinking of going into Dance of Thieves, but I just feel like I promised you guys to read this one, so we're doing it, we're finally doing it, and I was in the mood for something kind of light and fluffy, and that's what we're getting. I was really anticipating this read because in all the other books, whenever Jasper was mentioned, I was like, literally, who are you? I need your book. I need to get to it right away. So I had a feeling that I would really like him. I've been reading a bit this morning and I'm obsessed with him. I'm literally obsessed with him. He might be my new book boyfriend. I'm only 30 pages in. That's literally nothing. But I just really like him. I really like him from the get-go. And I'm already getting the vibe of their kind of relationship. I think I love childhood best friends to lovers. I just think I love the trope. I love the whole fact of like they have all this history and they have like inside jokes and they've just grown up together. There's something about it where we're joining people that already have inside jokes and already know each other really well. Just makes my heart feel warm. I don't know what it is about it. And I also really like where we've started in this one. So we're following Sloane, who's about to get married, and Sloane and Jasper have been literally best friends forever. Like they've grown up together, and Jasper really doesn't like her fiance and is wondering why she's getting married to him, and she doesn't really like her fiance either, but she feels a lot of pressure to get married to him. And I believe it's all going to fall apart on her wedding day, which is what it says on the back. And I just really like the fact that we've started there and it's like kind of all kicking off right from the start of the book. And I just really like how he's the right amount of sort of protective towards her, but without being like possessive over her. I just really don't like the possessive kind of vibe. And all I want to do is just sit and read it all morning. So that's what I'm gonna do. I just love him. I love him. Guys, I am in the same position and in the same jumper as the last clip, but I promise you I haven't been in bed all day. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's now the evening. I have made actually quite a dent into Powerless. I'm currently up to page 176. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it's just what I needed, especially after Alone with You in the Ether, because it's just such a different romance compared to this. This is just so fun and funny and it's so easy to read and I feel like I'm just speeding through it. I adore Jasper and Sloane. I love them. I love their chemistry right from the get-go. I love the childhood best friends lovers trope. This is a trope that I always forget that I absolutely love, but whenever I see it come up in a book I'm like, it's something that I don't know why. I just don't realise that I love. But I love that they have all these inside jokes and this history that they've previously had, and it feels like they're kind of letting us in on the joke as well, but the joke's already there and they already know each other really well. I think it just feels more tangible and more real to me. I don't know why, but we're basically following Sloane and she was previously engaged and she's basically a runaway bride. Jasper, who has been her best friend literally since she was 10 years old, has basically taken her on the run. Literally ditched her wedding, got her out of there, and they went back to Chestnut Springs, went to the ranch. And then we have Jasper, who is a really famous hockey player, and he's just in a really bad headspace, so he's really struggling with playing at the minute, and they basically end up going on a sort of a road trip together, and that's where I'm at right now. And I think that's kind of like the premise of this book, is that they're going on this road trip, and it's just so clear that they're crazy about each other, and it just makes me so like giddy reading it, and it's just really cute. It's really cute. It's the end of the week, it's the end of the 7 days together, and it's time to do a little rundown of each day and how much we actually read in total this week. Last night, as you saw, I was reading Powerless and I ended up getting to page 206 yesterday, which I feel like that has honestly flown by. It's just so easy to read and it's definitely a very bingeable book. So in total yesterday I read 180 pages altogether, which is crazy to me because I feel like this week has been kind of slow just in terms of how much I've read each day. I feel like it's not as much as I usually end up reading. So it kind of surprised me that I'd read that much yesterday because it honestly didn't even feel like that. So day one we read 64 pages of the XX and 23 of Alone with You in the Ether, which meant I read 87 pages in total. Day two we read 74 pages of Alone with You in the Ether. Then day 3 we read 56. Day 4 we read 85 pages. Day 5 we read 79 pages and ended up finishing it. And then on day 6 I moved on to Powerless and I actually ended up reading 26 pages. Then day 7 we read 180 pages, which means altogether our total number of pages that we read this week was 587. So that's how much I read this week. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming along with me this week and seeing how much I actually end up reading. As for Powerless, because I am nearly halfway through this, I'm going to include this in my next reading vlog as well. So you'll get to see all my final thoughts and everything in that vlog, because I know it's kind of annoying that I'm leaving it literally half read and you don't get to see kind of like my rating and my updates and everything, but that will be in the next reading vlog. So stay tuned for that. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and I will hopefully see you in my next one.